Welcome back to Health Advocates Ask the Expert series, a monthly show about trending topics in healthcare. I'm your host, Courtney Preiser. Today we're joined by Health Advocates Matt Verdecchia to talk about preventing and addressing harassment in the workplace. Matt has over 30 years of experience in the behavioral health field and focuses on the development and delivery of training for Health Advocates' EAP+Work Life program. Matt, thanks so much for joining us.
No, it's my pleasure, Courtney. Thanks.
So how big of an issue is harassment in the workplace?
I think we have to take a look at what harassment is and isn't. I think people really use the word harassment and they really don't know what that word means. I think there's a lot of disrespect. I think there's probably a lot of bullying in the workplace. To say that actually harassment is occurring, I think it does. But I think sometimes people really don't know that that's a legal term.
I see.
So to say that it happens, yeah, of course it does. It happens in every organization.
So how can managers and supervisors identify harassment but also distinguish it from disrespect or rude behavior?
I mean, you might walk through your work environment and feel like you're being treated in a very disrespectful way. Treating somebody disrespectfully is not illegal. Okay, you might walk through your work environment and feel like you're being bullied in some fashion. That might be true. But bullying somebody is not illegal. So as I had mentioned earlier, harassment has its legal definitions. It's kind of what they call but for. Am I treating you in an unprofessional, uncivil manner but for your age, but for your gender?
I see.
And does my behavior have a negative impact on your ability to do your work? So I think we have to really kind of take a look at the difference between just being disrespectful to somebody and what really crosses the line into what is truly illegal harassment or discrimination. Harassment and discrimination are both part of Title VII. They kind of go together.
Sure, but there's a strong line there that is clearly defined.
There's a very expensive line that makes it very defined. So when we take a look at the kind of behaviors that people call harassment, they probably haven't hit that level. It doesn't make them acceptable because they're still against company policy. They're still against your code of conduct. It could be illegal behavior, but not technically harassment.
I see.
What we want to do is really provide education to folks so they have an understanding of what's the difference between just being disrespectful and what crosses the line into what is illegal harassment, in which case organizations start to write larger and larger checks.
That makes a lot of sense. So what can organizations do to prevent those incidents of harassment?
Number one, you have to have a strong policy. Okay? It has to be reviewed, put out, communicated, and reviewed, in my mind, every 6 months. Review that policy. Remind people of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. From top down, you have to do training for the leaders in the organization, supervisors, managers. It's good to get union involvement as well, because they're the ones who are going to see this behavior and are responsible for responding to it. The way that they respond is definitely going to is definitely going to affect how well this goes or how poorly this goes. So training absolutely is the number one. Accountability is the second part of it. Okay, and too often I think we've seen many cases where people aren't held accountable. It's allowed to continue. It's allowed to continue, I think, predominantly because managers and supervisors are afraid to address the issue because they think rightfully, what can happen to me throughout the course of this? And they don't realize enforcing the policy reduces the risks to the organization. It reduces the risks to the manager or supervisor handling it. And we're doing what's in the best interest of the employees. They have to get somebody else involved with it. No organization wants their employees to deal with this by themselves. HR obviously is the next stop when the train leaves the station.
That makes sense.
So we have to make sure that they're involved. People learn vicariously.
Absolutely.
So there's accountability here, then people are thinking, well, you know what, that's probably not a good idea. I should probably pull back on that behavior because I saw what happened to Dave.
Absolutely. So how should organizations prepare to address harassment should it occur?
Okay, again, the policy review, and then the second key to that is training. And again, the training piece is from top down. You can't hold somebody accountable for information you don't have. So the training piece is a definitive part of that, the accountability, and I want organizations to stop worrying about, is it harassment or not? What I want them to start really thinking about is, do we promote and maintain a respectful work environment? Are the behaviors that we permit, are they reasonable? Are they conducive to productivity? You know, are we doing things not so much in terms of, are we discriminating? Are we being more inclusive? Is the way I'd look at it. I'd rather see it more positive than we shouldn't do this, we shouldn't do that. No, this is what we can do. This is what we should be doing.
It creates a positive work culture at the same time.
No doubt about it.
So how does Health Advocate assist organizations in preventing and addressing harassment?
Well, I think the great part of it is, and to really hammer the training piece, we do a lot of training nationally for our groups. And that's great. It gives us an opportunity to understand their culture. We have an opportunity to review their policies, making sure that they're up to snuff and that they're relatively tight. So dealing with so many groups that we do, we have the opportunity to go in there objectively and help them review policy. The second part is encourage, conduct, and provide that kind of training. Then when things do get sticky, let's say that they do have an incident or they have a concern, HR or anybody in a leadership role can call us and say, hey, you know what? I have a situation going on. I'm really not sure quite how to deal with this issue. What could you recommend? How best to approach this? If they have an issue, how best to supportively confront that supervisor or those individuals who are likely engaged in not harassing behavior, but it's probably inappropriate. And how do we go about managing that interaction, getting people the assistance they need? Okay. So that's the way I see it probably best going on, through that manager's assistance program that everybody has access to.
And nice to have an outside expert source kind of come in and weigh in on the situation.
Oh, absolutely, and have that objectivity. We can see the forest for the trees. You know, our skin is in the game, but what we're advising them to reduce risk. Not pushing the inevitable or the best outcome. How best to avoid the risk.
Great, well this was really informative. Thank you so much for coming.
No, it's my pleasure, thank you.
Yeah. And thank you for tuning in. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll follow us on our social media pages and subscribe to our channel below. And join us again next time for another episode of Health Advocates Ask the Experts.